Welcome, everybody. I'm really grateful for you to be here. We're at 95 already. I'm sure we'll get over 120 before we're done. It speaks highly for the quality of who we are as an organization, as a project. It speaks highly of you and the commitment you have to the communities you live in, to your own self, and to what we're doing in the world. So thank you for being here. We have a lot to share this evening, and so I'm eager to get to it. Again, blessings to all of us for the work we're doing, and the strength and the hope that you give to me in my role is really priceless, and I'm grateful for that. Let's turn it over right now. Elliot, will you give us the elder opening, please?
Thank you, Paul. I'm honored to be in front of this august crowd listening to the chatter. So many years of experience and wisdom. And I ask us to just kind of take a breath, let go of the challenges of the day, of which I judge we all have many, and sit in and acknowledge the presence and the wisdom and the experience that we collectively bring here today, and share our gratitude for those who will speak and share the growth and the challenges of MKP, so that collectively we can look to how we get even better, how we contribute more, and how we share what we all bring.
Thanks, Elliot, very much. I'm going to now have Ed, if you don't mind, share a few things, and then after Ed, it'll be Brian, and then Brian, if you give it back to me.
Thanks, Paul. I won't take much time. Welcome, all you men. Thank you very much for being here. Things continue to go well. Our online programs continue to go well. And I know you're anxious to hear what tonight's meeting is about, which is when are things going to change? I do want to remind you, you should have gotten by email on broadcast an invitation to nominate yourself or someone else for one of 3 board positions that are going to come up for election in the fall, and for taking office in January. And those 3 positions are the secretary, the chair-elect, and the chair. Now, let me explain a couple things. I am and have been the secretary, and we made a mistake last year. I made a mistake last year, and the elections for secretary and treasurer are supposed to be staggered, and they weren't. So after 1 year in the job, I'm going to run again for a 2-year term, and that way they'll be staggered. People have asked me, why are we voting for chair? I thought the chair-elect automatically becomes the chair. The bylaws of the organization, as a check and balance, require an election. Every time we've done that, it's been the chair-elect who got elected, but we do open it up for nominations, and anyone who is nominated and undergoes the vetting process will be considered. And finally, chair-elect, that'll be a person who next year will be voted on for chair. The following year will be the immediate past chair. And we're going to keep those nominations open until September 15th. So you're more than welcome to nominate yourself. So if you're interested, get in touch with me. If you have questions, get in touch with me, or just let me know you're nominating yourself or somebody else. Thanks, Paul. I'll give it back. I'll now give it to Brian.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. I wanted to point out something really quick because we have a lot on the agenda tonight. But next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, we have a exciting program under the chair's front porch on Core Map. It's a offering that we have as part of the curriculum at MKP, a program which works on identifying your awareness, a multidimensional awareness. So Carmel Sumit has been the driving force in MKP behind this, and will be bringing that to us next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So I invite you to tune in for what should be a very good program. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Paul.
Okay, I'm going to give it back to Ed for just a second.
Yeah, I got to call an oops on myself. I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that Deb Mauger is on the call, and I said welcome men. So I want to make it very clear that Deb Mauger is always welcome and is particularly welcome here tonight. So welcome all. That's it, Paul.
Great, thanks. Someone's asking in the chat 7 p.m. for the front porch next week. It's 5 Central, 5 Pacific, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And when you hear the number from me, it'll usually be Pacific. So thanks for asking that. When you hear it from Brian, it'll always be Central. So we'll have to get clear about that. So moving along, let me share with you that I'm sure most all of you are here specifically for what's next in terms of how we're going to move forward in the project related to in-person trainings. What we'll have presented later this evening is a specific process for going forward by location to determine go, no go in-person events. Richard will give us that later in the evening and share with you how that is all going to work. So that's coming up. We'll also have the financial conditions of the project by Deb, organizational development with John Levitt, Deb Mauger, John Levitt, area considerations with Dan, and curriculum launches with Boyson, followed by Richard. So that's what we got. Again, grateful that you're here and grateful for the way things are working in these times. There's struggles for all of us in different ways, and we're holding ourselves together in a real strong and beautiful way. So let's go to you, Deb, for finances.
Thank you, Paul. It's always a pleasure to be here, men, and it's such an honor to be of service to this organization. I'm not going to take long because I know that there are more interesting and pressing topics by men who you're waiting to hear from. So just very quickly, I gave an update at the last town hall, and the good news is not much has changed, and that is good news. So as you know, what happened with the cessation of face-to-face training due to the COVID-19 virus, we lost a significant amount of revenue. Most of our revenue comes from our training, and most of our training was face-to-face. So what happened was we had a significant downturn in the amount of revenue that we were bringing in, and what did we do as a project? How did we respond? Well, as you know, we went to and asked you, the men of the project, to help us. We started an emergency fund. And I am so moved by the response of men in this project. How much men have opened up in terms of renewing membership, increasing their membership, giving to the emergency fund. Through the efforts of John Levin, the organizational development team, our major donors have stepped up and given a lot of support to the project. From a purely financial basis, that is what has kept us going, men's generosity. From a mission perspective and from a heart perspective, it shows me just how important this project is. It shows me that during this time of stress, men in the project believe in the project and want it to continue, sustain, and succeed. Bless you. From my heart, I bless all of you. It's because of you we are in so much better shape than so many nonprofit and even for-profit organizations. We started the year with a fairly healthy cash, unrestricted cash balance. In my life, it's all unrestricted cash that I'm worried about. Restricted cash is not very much available to us at this point. That which is available, we have tried to maximize and use. Most of that restricted cash exists in the areas and controlled by the areas. And I would encourage the areas, if you can find ways to use it, it always benefits the project. What else did we do? Well, we went on the fundraising campaign that's been very successful for us. We also have men in the project using their creative energy to create online training. We already had the men's work occurring that Boyson and others had put together, and that was bringing in about $40,000 a year for us. That is increasing. We also now have new online training events. We now are bringing in more revenue with that option. It is not replacing what we were doing with face-to-face, but we've just started. It's only been a couple months that we've really been going at this. So pivoting to an online presence while we wait to get back to face-to-face is helping us on a revenue basis. We also went and got the PPP loan, which is helpful to us. And we also looked at cutting expenses. So as you know, we made a significant cut of expense based on my recommendation by cutting personnel, contract service, and employees. We have not made further cuts. As of today, tonight, I am not recommending to the board or to the project a across the project expense cut. We've been doing well enough that we can stay steady for this month. I am recommending that we look at some particular contractors to see if some of those contracts can be changed to be less expensive to us, but not an across the board cut. I do reserve that I look at this every month. So every month we look at the revenue coming in, we look at our ongoing expenses. I work very closely with the treasurer, Neil Gritz, and with John Levitt, the lead link of organizational development. And every month we look and think about where we are and forecast where we will be a year from now. We have sufficient unrestricted cash to get to the end of the year. We will get to the end of the year without a problem. Now, something can blow up and we might have to have me come forward and ask for an expense reduction. I'm not ruling it out, but I'm not asking for an across the board reduction today. The other things that we did is Neil has done a significant job of reducing our insurance expense by negotiating with our broker and with our insurance carriers. And we've reduced expense around lease and site rentals. We will continue to be aggressive in that regard because we don't know when we will resume face-to-face. So I just have good news for you tonight in that nothing major is going to happen in a negative way this coming month. We have sufficient cash, unrestricted cash to get to year end. Bless you. That's due to the men in the project. Now, getting into 2021, I don't know when things will resume. The uncertainty is always risky for anyone in an organization. And as we get into 2021, and if we're not resuming face-to-face trainings, we shall have to see what other actions we're going to take. So that's summing up right now in that, thank you, men, for all that you've done. Your creative energy, your generosity, and your time, your spirit, your energy, and your money is keeping us in a very healthy condition for what most organizations are struggling with. And that is my presentation.
Hey everybody, I'm following Deb here, organizational development. Deb, thank you, and thanks for 4 years and 8 months of consistent service to us. It's been extraordinary. So, organizational development, once we hit, COVID went into high gear. And the men who make calls for us in the project made over 10,000 calls to all of you and so many more. And we've had the best year in membership and fund development that we've ever had. And I'm grateful. I'm also aware that it's really important we not ask too much of ourselves either. I have a frame that I use in fund development that's give from our abundance without hurting ourselves. And so we're gonna come to a couple months of being quiet with organizational development, except for a couple targeted campaigns. There's a membership campaign going on in one of the areas that didn't have one earlier. There's some restricted giving. We're going to be working some more on some targeted campaigns that we had to put to the side, but it's going to be relatively quiet here through the summer and into the fall, and then we'll ramp back up for year end with National Giving Day, International Men's Day, and the typical year-end push. As we've been making calls, we've been coming across men in some of the areas who don't have food or shelter, who've been set aside by COVID, unemployment, not getting benefits, whatever it is. We've been working really hard to make sure that every single one of those men gets contact with men in their area or community. And I'm really proud of the men who have offered food, help, transportation, connection, love, and consideration. That's part of the abundance of the project. And I want to share with you the 2050 project. We've sat with 140 men and women in 3-hour strategic planning sessions now. Sisters from Her, Woman within our organization, brothers from in and outside the organization, BAM, some of the parallel other organizations that know us, and about 100 of us. David McLean from the Northwest, one of my project co-leads on this, has designed something where, for those who don't want to do the 3-hour session, we can get your feedback using an asynchronous Google experience where you'll be prompted through video to go through the experience and give us the feedback we're looking for to design the strategic plan. It'll take us from 2021 to 2025 and then also out to 2050. When that announcement comes out, and it will be in the coming weeks, please do take the time and give us your insight about what your dreams are for the project going forward. All of that is being data entered and read and carefully considered, and much like the last couple times, the last time we really did a formal strategic plan process was in the first half of the 2010 decade. We didn't do one in the second half, and it's something that I still reference back to. It's something that helps guide us and be clear about what our mission, vision, values, and goals are. So I'm not going to belabor org dev other than to give special thanks to Dan Baldwin, Sultani Tripp, Rick Morgenstern, and all of our membership callers, Chris Conti and Jim Fannin, and I'm not going to name everybody, but everybody worked about twice as hard this year as they did last year, and it really has made a difference. You heard Deb say that it's always tenuous right now, but that her ability to not recommend further cuts is at this moment is based in part on the success we've had this year. So thank you, and I will pass it forward from here.
Area considerations, Dan, you're up. And thanks.
Yeah.
For being here.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm reminded of when I went through my weekend at Hamel-Woods in 1987. And in Hamel-Woods, during the Midnight Adventure, they had a huge pond, and with a man in a scuba suit. And he came over the edge there in the Midnight Adventure with the log, and there it was. And every group just froze what to do. And I said, yeah, and dived into the pond. And, the terrain has changed this year. And it's natural in such a big crisis that's going on, and the landscape changing, to freeze, to reassess, and then to jump in. And there's many of us that have started to jump in. One thing I know is this work must continue. It's more than ever. And we've come up with many different strategies and ways to continue this work. And the results are starting to come back in the last 2 months to be super exciting. And I think it's going to be a growth of the project. But it involves a new dance right now. In a little bit, Richard's going to be talking about when we can go back to the face-to-face. One thing I know for sure is nothing will ever be the same, because we've learned some new things, and we're going to be even stronger in the end. What I'm talking about is traditionally at the area level, we're celebrating and primarily NWTA enrollments and graduations. If we can move to a new dance, which is celebrating people getting involved in the work, and how many new people in my area or in my city are exposed to the work. And we have these new ways, where it used to be NWTA. Now we have, of the 27 men's groups that showed up at the area level, 17 are up and running and doing quite well. In the last 2 months, it's 30 new people in one area that are been exposed to the work and are sitting in circle now. The men's work, we have hundreds of people going through this simple men's work. And some of them are wanting to form their own circles, and some are coming back and landing in circles. Because all these men are going to be waiting to take the NWTA or might be exposed. And we have these new online trainings that are going to be coming forward in the next month or two for them to get involved. So it's this new dance. And I want us all to just consider that our cause is more important than ever, and that everybody can help with this new thing right now while we're waiting, and even after we return to normal. Is, you think about it as an NWT leader, those that have a lot of skill at facilitation and challenging men, please get involved and become facilitators of these new programs. We need you, whether it be the men's work, whether it be the crossroads, whether it be any of these things, because we're going to face a need for more facilitators. We're selling these out, and we'll need more facilitators. If you're staff men, celebrate, get involved too in supporting these circles, and celebrate exposing another man to this work by inviting them to that work. Room coordinators, consider in your local area getting men to go through the men's work and then landing in an open circle, open men's circle, not an open eye group, open men's circle, where they're meeting together. We're going to be supporting communities and areas on kind of measuring that and celebrating the growth. And we're going to need welcome teams as these people get exposed to these new ways of doing things, to encourage them to continue with our cause of growing woke up and grown up and emotionally literate men. iGroup coordinators, please spread the word. And another thing for the iGroup coordinators and others is we're finding more and more men coming back to the community, especially for online. Those that lived out of their area or had difficulties committing to making that drive, they're coming back. So please consider this is a time where we can create more and more iGroups virtually for those that weren't able to do it before. Our membership calling team has moved to that as an offer, and we're going to be trying to organize men in time zones where they can actually form and birth new iGroups. Just incredible stuff going on. Area administrators, man, you're the heart of the knowing and the shaking and who's everybody's doing it. So please consider just putting on your thinking cap for a moment, and who are the people that are passionate and want to continue to do this work, and come up with and ask them, invite them, encourage to do something different. I know, not the traditional NWTA, but something. We're having lots of creativity by the societies, creating new events and new ways to get together. And there's many people that are even coming up with fun events, playing games online, cooking, teaching something, anything for brotherhood. But I want to pause for a second around what John said. One of the most important things we can do during this time is continue to put the invitation out there that we are a brotherhood. We are community. Encourage men that if they need help, to go on their community listserv and ask for it. And then encourage men that have means or some extra resources to help that man to one man at a time, to help that. I've heard so many incredible stories of communities doing this, or individual men doing this. So just proud. It's a different age, and there's so many ways that we can still show up and even do more than we've ever done before. I like this challenge.
Let's move to Boyson, curriculum launches. This is an exciting area of action right now, so let's go there. And thanks again, Dan, John, and Deb, for what you brought forward to all of us. Go for it, Rich. Go for it, Boyson.
Thank you. 123 guys on the call, and men and Deb, thank you. Curriculum launch. So the curriculum team used to meet once a month a long time ago. Then they started meeting every 2 weeks. Now the curriculum meets every week. And since March, we have processed close to a dozen new curriculum, and we have a lot of stuff that is rolling out now. And I'm going to circle and stay with what Dan was just talking about in terms of the men's work, in terms of how we welcome new men into the community. So the men's work has been going now for 2 years. We are over 900 men have gone through the men's work. Over 60 men go through it every month. For the last 4 months straight, we have been full Every section of the men's work has been full as we're going along. We're planning on adding additional sections of the men's work in the next couple of months, and also starting to do demographic splits so that we'll have a GBTQ offering of the men's work. We'll have an offering of the men's work in Espanol. We'll have an offering of the men's work for men of obvious African ancestry, for BIPOC men, as entry points for men to join the community. And those men come in through this very simple, very elegant, structured 3-week program, and they get the basics of what it is to sit in a circle with men. And they get the way that I described the energetics. You know, if the new warrior training is the warrior archetype, I want these guys to walk into the men's work and it's a warm blanket of love and welcome and acceptance and connection. And we see amazing things happen in 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, 3 90-minute meetings, these men connect with each other. They open up. There's a lot of vulnerability shared, and they leave those circles anxious. They leave that 3-week program anxious for the next thing. So we have lots of next things coming. So Living Through Disruption, which is a 7-week course. We're offering that again twice this month, and another one starting next month. The new course that is coming from David Carr and a very large team of men who have been writing, called Crossroads, which is going to be a 6-week course, very deep. And then they're envisioning a 12-week follow-up to that on the other end. We have a young men's course called Impact coming out. That is, we have a landing page for it. We just haven't scheduled our first ones. There are tons of new curriculum being rolled out. I'm overwhelmed and excited, and we are building new processes. We are kind of reimagining how we welcome men into the organization, how we keep up with men in the organization. I want your help. I want all the areas help for that. And as Dan said, we're going to be developing systems so that we can have live feedback on how you're doing, how is your community doing, how is your area doing on bringing men to the work and getting them involved in it. I want to shout to the elders who have been working overtime beautifully, creating, welcoming spaces, outreach spaces, working on racial justice issues, their action group that's launched. I want to shout to operations who turned the staff training one and the iGroup facilitation training into online trainings, and those are going like gangbusters now. Our integral thinking course, which anybody here can take, is we have a 6-part course about integral thinking that you can just sign up for. It's very inexpensive, and walk through the process. And then I want to speak specifically to some of the things around, since the murder of George Floyd and since our publication of the Black Lives Matter statement on June 1st in MKP, the incredible bonding together and bringing forward of programs for white men to be doing our work together and looking at issues of racial justice. So we have a new 6-week long course being offered. We have a short course being offered as an introduction to multicultural language. We have a course that is called Waking Up to Whiteness that is going to be launching in the next month. And I am deeply humbled and honored to be connected to the conversation that is happening with the group that I call the Guideposts to Black Inclusion in MKP, the men from Chicago and across the country who came together to say, here's what we would like MKP to look at. Here's what we would like MKP to do. And that conversation is ongoing, and I think it's revolutionary to what's happening in the Mankind Project USA. So it is an incredible time of opportunity for us. I'm excited by what I'm seeing in terms of the number of men who are engaging us. When COVID hit, we took about a 65 to 70% hit in the number of outreach contacts that were coming into our system. That number has creeped back up to about 75% of where we were before we started. So we are coming back online, and men are hungry and hungry for this connection, hungry for what we have. And that's all I want to say. Yes, Aaron Coro, the answer to your question is mkpusa.org/training catalog. And let me just show very, very quickly the training catalog for MKP. Shout to Tim Chumley, who is on the line tonight. This is what the live training catalog on MKP USA looks like now. It is totally broken down so you can access what do we have online for men requiring the NWTA, for mixed gender, what do we have in person. You can scroll through, you can see everything that is available right there. There it is, the training catalog, broken out with online or in person. Everything that's available and ready to go now is right at the top of the page. And I will hand it back to Paul.
Thanks, Boyson. Next up is the, I guess we could call him the man of the program for this evening. Everybody seems to be quiet, so I'm making the assumption that we're really eager to hear, Richard, what you have to say.
I got a question for Boyson, if I could, real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, no, great. Just speak up. Yes, ask.
The Ruben Rosas out of California. Wondering, I heard the voice of what's going on for the white men in the organization, and I'm very proud of that's going on. I'm in this world as a Latino man, and I want to know what's going on with men of color. And I know that we are working on some stuff out here in California. I'd love to hear some voices on what's going on nationwide. I heard the stuff about Chicago. Is there other works to be going on?
Beautiful. Let me speak to it very quickly. So Woku Warriors of Color United, Adam Gettinger-Biswela, who's in San Diego also. He and I actually had a conversation just a few days ago about starting to set up some additional pieces that are for the broader Warriors of Color. The men's work for Latino men, the men's work in Spanish is something that I'm actively working with Mariano Guas and several other guys on getting those launched to create dedicated landing pages in Spanish, materials in Spanish, so that we are moving there. Does that help?
Excellent. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ruben.
Richard, you're up. Nice shirt, by the way.
Thank you. I got a lot of heart. I wear my heart on my sleeve too.
Yeah, you do. You do.
So before I do my presentation, I need to thank some people. And Boyson gave operations a lot of credit for onboarding the IGFT and ST1, and we couldn't have done it without the leader trainers helping and the IGFT Council. Matt Kelly, Ken Schultz, also Rick Bronick for the unpacking training that's just about to come out of beta, I hope, and get formally approved. I also want to thank Robert Schull, who was invaluable in helping us draft all of the safety stuff around COVID and really helping us figure this out together. And he did that starting in March. Keith Jarvis has also been doing some heavy lifting on this. Every Monday, he sits down and does some metrics tracking on this for about 5 hours and did a lot of the heavy drafting of the proposal to the board and working with me and Boyson to get updates posted on MKP Connect and also the new stuff that's going to come out. So I'm just really appreciative of all those people. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. I got a short presentation of 11 slides, and then we'll open questions. I'd like to get through the whole slide, and then we'll go back to them if there's specific questions. Can you see what the training and event screen? Yes, excellent. So, starting off, what affects when and how we resume? Out of our control is infection risk. Out of our control, medical prevention or treatment vaccines, or just a treatment. Improved testing, all of those things are out of our control. What's in our control? Attendee screening and pre-mitigation, on-site screening and active mitigation, and compliance with the local, state, and federal guidelines. I should have county in there also. Moving forward, last week, the MKP board approved a stage plan of gradually decreasing the restrictions. Today, we were in phase 1, right before this meeting. We are now moving to phase 2. It's where we're moving to tonight and starting tomorrow. We're going to talk about that on the next slide. Phase 3 will be triggered by lowered infection rates, and it means we'll have increased attendance on our trainings, and there'll be some relaxation on the facility requirements. When we get close to phase 3, more will be announced about that. Phase 4 is full resumption of in-person events with a high probability there will be still new adaptations to it. We're not going to go back to the old way of we were doing NWTAs because what we've learned during the pandemic. So I'm hoping that at least this has increased safety overall. And when we get to phase 4, it's going to look a little bit different than it did pre-pandemic. So what is phase 2? Phase 2 is about opening us up and saying yes, and it's not about a blanket no for the whole country for trainings and events and gatherings. We went from being at a no for everybody to yes, and the and is all events and gatherings have to conform to city count, state, and national guidelines. It means low infection rates, which means the percent of population infected in the area that we're doing the training, where the staff is coming from and where the participants are coming from. It also means low risk of infected attendees at the event. Those are two different things. Low infection rate is the percent of the population infected. Low risk of an attendee being infected is the percentage of a person showing up at the event that is infected with COVID. And that varies based on the amount of people at the event and the infection rate, right? So in this phase 2 model, if you want to do an event, you will contact training and events, submit the event. We will look to see if it's possible for you to do it. If it is, you're going to get tentative approval. Once you get the tentative approval, then we, in training and events, move towards tracking the metrics in your area. We move towards screening and we move towards mitigation. What that means is if you request to do an ST1, we're going to track all the infection rates in the area that the ST1's happening, the counties the people are coming from, and we're going to provide you with what you will have to do to make the training as safe as possible, right? Any change in the infection rates that occurred during the period leading up to the event could create a postponement or a cancellation, especially if it's a spike in the last couple of weeks. When I say tentative approval, I really would like everybody to think of a caution light. It's not fully yellow, but it's not fully green either, right? About 2 weeks before an event, you would probably get an official go ahead, and that doesn't mean it still couldn't be canceled. So everybody take a breath. I know you've already read the third part. Currently, there's no areas in the USA that meet any of these requirements, not one. There's a few small communities that do, right? So what that means is right now, Hawaii as an area could not do a training as an area, but there's a small island in Hawaii, Kauai, that could. And their infection rate and their risk rate is low enough where they could pull off a 15-person outdoor pit. They could not pull off a 15-person indoor pit, but they could pull off a 15-person outdoor pit. They could not pull off a 15-person indoor pit, but they could pull off a 15-person outdoor pit. because the county rules for that say no indoor gatherings of 10 people or more from a different household, but you can have 100 people outside. If that rule changes and the infection rate still stays low, training's off. We have no control over what the county government does. So there are some places that are moving towards being able to do stuff. I want to caution everybody to think of this as yes and the and is really hard right now. And we're moving towards a better space in some places. Requirements. Attendee agreement detailing pre-event behavior, restrictions, and on-site requirements. There's strict limits on the total number of attendees for pre-approved event. These vary depending on the training and event. Events will be non-residential. That means no overnight unless additional requirements are met. Events held outdoors have specific limits regarding facility size per attendee. And if they're indoors, you have to have bigger spaces and lower infection rates. Attendees have to come from the immediate area and may not use commercial travel for 2 weeks, period, prior to the event. Attendees means staff, leaders, and participants. Commercial travel means a bus, a ferry, a plane. Attendees with specific at-risk populations will not be allowed to participate. This one makes me sad. The project has always honored and welcomed many, many men, many different types of men, many different ages of men. And to protect some of our populations of warriors, they're not going to be allowed to participate in some of these events. I don't want to get into the details of that tonight. It will come out by Monday. What are we going to do to prevent infection on sites? Self-peer fever checks, face coverings, distancing, hygiene. It's about sanitizer everywhere. This is not all of the mitigations. It's a huge 3-page list, and it varies depending on what type of training you're going to do, what type of gathering you're going to do, what type of event it is. It also depends on where it's at. It is super hard to do anything indoors. Where can I get more info? As always, you can reach out directly to me or Keith in trainings and events. And on Monday, after Boyson, myself, and Jarvis complete the document we're working on, it's going to be published on Connect. It's not going to have everything in it that you want. It's just not possible. It's not possible to give all the data in a way that's easily digestible. And because things are still in flux and changing, some of the stuff isn't going to be published ever because it changes weekly, monthly. I am hoping that we can move to stage 3 eventually. And I really want to see us do some trainings and events at phase 2 to make sure that we can do them safely. Because if we're at phase 2 and people are getting sick, then we need to learn from it before we move forward. For me, this is all very, very scary. What about my iGroup? In-person iGroup attendance is not prohibited by MKP USA. It hasn't been. Ever since this started, it was highly suggested that iGroups meet online. And we still continue to strongly suggest that all iGroups continue to meet online. Any group that chooses to meet in person against this recommendation does so at their own risk and without sponsorship by MKP USA. I repeat, your iGroup can meet, and you do it at your own risk. Your iGroup can meet in person. What about council and society meetings? Area constituency meetings are not prohibited by MKP USA right now. We continue to strongly suggest that any such meetings are to be held online. Any council or society group that chooses to meet in person against this recommendation does so at their own risk and without sponsorship by MKP USA. So what does that mean? If I want to have any type of official gathering, maybe I want to have a leader body gathering that's in person, right? That I would normally not even submit to MKP USA. If you do that in person, you do so at your own risk. If you want it to be covered, it has to be formally submitted as an event, just like you would do an area gathering, just like you would do an elder gathering, just like you would do an LKS gathering, right? At the area level, or even at a community level. It has to be formally submitted, vetted, and tracked. So I'm asking for your help. I need patience and I need cooperation. I need you all to work with me, and I need, this isn't going to move as fast as any of us want, I think. So I'm going to need patience. I'm going to need cooperation, and I'm here to answer questions. So if you want to know something, reach out. I am available.
Looks
Also
like
open to questions.
chat.
There is Kelly Doty.
With the large area, we will have people from areas with different infection rates. How will we assess the risk in this scenario? So it's a great question, Kelly. So the area is not assessing the risk. That's going to be handled by training event safety and training event execution. What we have set up is a tracking system where we have looked back at the last couple of years of your events, mostly NWTAs, to see where's your staff coming from, where are your participants coming from. And then we're tracking in those counties that pertain to, in your case, NorCal, right? And those are the infection rates we're using. We're not using all of California when we're discussing NorCal. We are incorporating the Tahoe area, the Reno area, because those are where some of your participants come. Those metrics change for every area. This is why the metrics tracking is so difficult. And it definitely helps your chances of getting something approved by not tracking stuff that doesn't pertain to you. Does that answer your question, Kelly? Awesome. Mike, yes, that island is Kauai. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. If I just messed that up, please tell me.
It's perfect.
Thank you. Is it taxi or Uber public transportation? It is public transportation. What the ban is commercial travel. That's a whole nother thing that we haven't talked about, Jim. We are trying to make it as safe as possible and know who's coming. The big issue that we know about infection rates is exposure, right? If I'm a co-leader and I jump on a plane on Wednesday night and I sit next to somebody for 3 hours on a plane that's infected, I could possibly get it, right? If I'm a quick incubator, then I could possibly be spreading infection by Friday night or Saturday morning. That means that most of the staff and initiates are going to be infected by Sunday. That's what we're doing around the commercial travel. Answer your question?
I think your thing said public transportation.
I hope it didn't, but I'll go back and look at it. Thank you. I think it said commercial, but I will check. Local I groups meeting face-to-face, does that mean no support from insurance? Absolutely. If a local I group meets face-to-face, they are not covered by insurance, Carrie. Can you go back to the presentation about who might be restricted from attending NWTAs? Dan, that's not in the presentation. Right now, it's high-risk groups. So
Can you expound on that?
It's multiple comorbidities. So if somebody has high blood pressure, diabetes, and heart disease, they're probably not going to make it through the readiness form. If you're 75 and you don't have any of those other things, you're probably not going to make it through the readiness form. All of those things have not been 100% decided. It's why I didn't put them in this list. But it's about lowering the risk for high-risk populations. Is that enough for you for now?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Bill Davies, do the risk prevention measures include any sort of contact tracing in case the worst happens? So in the past, we have done some of our own contact tracing. I've done it twice in Mexico so far, about 2 different viruses. One of them, this one. Luckily, nobody got anything, so we didn't do full-on contact tracing. What we did was research and follow-up. We would ask anybody infected on a training to notify their local government that would then do the contact tracing, and we would also support that in a way that did not violate our own rules around confidentiality, which would mean we would most likely inform the staff, participants, everybody that was there on site that somebody was diagnosed after the training and that they should all go get tested and that they should respond back with their results. It's definitely something that we're looking at. As the areas are defined, participants are restricted to that area, correct? Not just participants, staff and leadership also, unless the leadership can get there without commercial travel. So it'd be pretty easy for a full leader in Wisconsin to go lead a training in Central Plains, as long as they don't do commercial travel, and as long as the county, state restrictions don't stop them from doing that. Thank you, Tom. David Johnson in Hawaii, the state has just brought in 14-day quarantine for inter-island flights. David, I hope they did that fast enough. That's what scares me. The inter-island travel, I'm hoping you guys close that door soon enough. If and when that is listed and other pieces are in place to hold a training, say here on Maui, can men fly in from other islands? Is the only way to move between islands in the States. So that's a tough question, because it's going to be, if it was non-commercial travel, I think yes. And the big issue on that one, David, is when I look at one island at a time, it's very easy to approve something. Hawaii as a whole right now would not get approval for anything because of the infection rates on one of your islands, right? There's a 17% risk on, I think it's Maui right now, for a 10-person event of somebody being infected, which is above what we would let happen. In the future, would it be possible, if the infection rate was low, for somebody to do that? Yes. And I want everybody to hear this one. Every event and every area is going to be looked at on its own. And some things will think like they should have been let through, and they won't be. And some things will look like they shouldn't have been let through, and they will be. There is some wiggle room on this to make it so that we're keeping things safe and permitting things to happen that should. One of the catalysts for this was Hawaii reaching out and saying, we want to do an outdoor 15-person pit on Kauai in October. And we went and looked at everything and said, well, they could probably pull that off if they didn't have any inter-island transfer, right? And so that was the catalyst to move this proposal to the board and to get the board approval and to move us to phase 2. Will there be other things like this? I hope so.
Thanks, Richard.
Yep. I'm really excited to read what Chris wrote after seeing Bob's comment. How much reliance on testing? Since I've read about false positive, false negative, seems like testing is not really to be relied upon. Bill, one of the things that we really hope, cheap, fast, reliable testing. If I could have a tent at the gate on an NWTA Wednesday and it was accurate and it was fast and it was cheap, and as the staff came, I could test them instantly and they drove around the block for 15 minutes, and then I could say, you're in. And I could do the same thing on Friday for the participants, and we could trust those tests, we'd be back to doing NWTAs now. But we're not there yet. I hope we get there.
They have those tests in Europe.
Yeah, I wish we could get them here, bro. Look, what I really wish is we could all get rid of this and end up being New Zealand, who hasn't had a case in 102 days. Yay, New Zealand. Yay. They're walking around holding hands with no masks, hugging each other. You know how much I miss hugging men? Being on men's weekends? It's rough to carry all this load and not get the benefit of going and loving on you men and getting the love from you men. And I've gotten a lot of love on the chat list tonight. I want to thank you men for that. I hear clear face masks. If we can make that work, Andy, I'd love to see them. There's going to be a whole bunch of mitigation issues, and that's a good one that I'm going to put on my list. Hold on, guys. I'm getting a lot of them at a time right now. I don't want to lose one. Will MKP still require one co-leader? If that would be Vincenzo, that would be a now waiver. I think they would waive it. What Vincenzo's asking is, would an area need to have an out-of-area co-leader or leader on the leader team to comply with the NWTA rules? I believe they would waive that. They've already waived a bunch of stuff. I talked to Paul Pendler last night. He supports us moving forward slowly and safely. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, John. Destrokish, nice dream. I have a hard stop. 4 cases in Auckland today. Oof, that scares me. That's sad to hear. So we're transitioning, right? We're transitioning to a different way of being. And we're learning a lot. And we're creating new things. And we're learning how to stay connected, even though we're separate. And we're going to continue to grow. And we're going to come back, and we're going to, eventually this is going to end. I don't know when. I'm hoping it's sooner than later. But eventually this will end. And we will go back to doing in-person trainings and events. And connecting and sharing in the ways that we always have. Doesn't mean we're going to do them the same way. We're going to do them safer. What really scares me about moving to this is what we do on in-person trainings, on our online trainings, in our iGroups, no matter where they are. What we do is we connect and we tear down barriers and we get vulnerable with each other. And when we do that in person, no matter how safe we start on Thursday night, by Sunday, we let our guard down because we're vulnerable, because we've connected, because we are in love with each other. And it's not safe yet. And so I want to caution men, if they do go to one of these in-person events, to be vigilant, to protect themselves, to protect the others on the training, to protect their people at home, to protect their communities, because that's what we do as New Warriors. We protect our families and our communities. I hear it 3 times every weekend. Every NWTA, I hear what we do as New Warriors. I want to continue to do it. Rick Gravrock.
Yeah, there's a lot of men here that do good work in this community and get the benefits of this community, whether it be in an I group or staffing or whatever. There's one person here that doesn't get to take advantage of those weekends and the circles that we have, and that one person is Deb. So I'm asking everybody here to unmute themselves, and we're going to do a POW for Deb, to honor Deb. So unmute yourselves, guys.
Hey, Rick, can you check out if that's cool with Deb?
Yeah. Deb, is that all right with you?
I'd be very blessed.
So we're going to do a POW here for Deb. All right, ready?
Come here.
Make a little noise here.
Hey, wait,
Go for
just
Deb, ready? Here we go. Come on, let's hear some noise, guys. Yeah, here we go.
All right.
So men and if you need more info, please reach out. I'm here to answer the questions. You can reach out to Keith. He's here to answer questions also. Stay safe. You're appreciated.
Thanks, Richard, very much for all the work you and Keith have done to keep us safe and keep us clear, and keeping the board in the right place to be able to make the right choices to keep us all safe. Would you, Carrie, make sure everybody's unmuted? But I think we already did this was a little, Deb, I just want to share with you, you have a fan club. There was some back channeling going on all about you, and what I didn't share with them that I will now. It's really appropriate that you would share your blessings to her on this particular week. It was her birthday on Monday.
Hey.
So more praise for her. And Deb, I want you to be clear how much you already know, but I want to let you know how much I and we appreciate you and how you kept us safe financially in a time that was just completely and totally uncertain, in a time that really required somebody with the depth that you have. And not only did you keep us safe financially, you kept us all informed and clear so that we did not have to worry along the way. So thank you for that. Everyone else who presented tonight, the work you're doing for all of us is amazing. It's touching, it's inspiring. And the way that you can do that in the energy and the spirit that you have in a time that's as complicated as this is astounding. You're special folks. And to all of us who sit here in this room, taking full pleasure with what MKP means and does for all of us, and what you too are doing in your communities and making a difference in your families and in yourself and in your communities. I don't know, there aren't words to say what a difference you are all making in this particular time, all the time, but in this particular time, it's particularly special that you show up in the spirit you show up. It could be so different, and it's not. The love in your heart, the strength in your spirit is making a difference in this difficult time. So thank you. That's all we have tonight. I really appreciate, we had a good group here, and it feels good to be connected and working together on this. Looking forward for what's next. We're out.
And Paul, that spirit would be the spirit of harmonious cooperation.
Yay!
Yeah. There we go. There we go.
Adios, amigos.
Adios.
Peace, brothers.
Thanks, Rick, for putting that together. I appreciate you for that.
Good night.